The royal hall blazed with firelight, its carved pillars flickering with the shadows of ancestors. Drums beat softly in the distance, steady as a heartbeat, as servants carried silver bowls and golden trays heavy with food to the long table where nobles sat. Tonight was not a festival nor a coronation, but a gathering meant to show unity between the royal daughters. At the far end sat the king, weary with age but still proud, his crown a heavy circle upon his brow. Beside him, the queen mother smiled with lips that never touched her eyes. To the left of the table sat the elder daughter, draped in silks dyed with indigo and gold, her face glowing with warmth. She was beloved by the villagers who often sang of her kindness and beauty, her laughter said to ease even the weight of grief. To her right sat the younger daughter, the stepchild, her jewels glittering sharper than her smile. While she bowed her head in feigned reverence, her heart beat with envy. Every word of praise for her sister burned her ears. Every glance the courtiers cast toward the elder made her feel invisible, as though her own blood counted for nothing. She had prepared for this night. Hidden within the folds of her sash was a small packet of crushed glass, ground fine until it looked no different from salt or sugar. She had taken it from a broken goblet days before, keeping it secret even from her mother. Tonight she would act. Tonight she would make her sister bleed. When the servants bowed and set the steaming plates of roasted goat, millet cakes, and honeyed fruits before the royal daughters, the younger's hand moved swiftly. With the grace of a whisper, she let the glimmering dust fall into her sister's food. None saw it. None but the gods. The elder daughter, unaware of betrayal, lifted her bowl with gratitude. She whispered a prayer of thanks as she always did before taking the first bite. All eyes seemed to rest on her in that moment, not because they knew but because light seemed always to follow her. Her spoon touched the food, stirred and rose. The grains glistened strangely in the firelight, but she thought nothing of it. She placed it upon her tongue. And then the hall fell silent. The shards did not cut her. They did not pierce her lips or tongue. Instead they shimmered, dissolving before all who watched. The crushed glass melted as though it were ice, spreading across her plate in golden liquid light. Letters began to form, curved, glowing, shifting symbols that danced like fireflies. They spilled across the surface of her food until her bowl was no longer filled with millet and stew but with a script no one could read. The courtiers gasped. The queen mother's smile faltered. The younger daughter froze, her hand trembling under the table. "What language is this?" whispered one elder. No answer came. The symbols pulsed with life, a writing of ancestors or spirits, or something far older than the kingdom itself. The king rose slowly, his voice heavy with awe. "These are not the words of man." The people in the hall bowed their heads, some in fear, others in reverence. None understood what had happened, but all knew it was no accident. Something greater had spoken, and it had chosen the elder daughter as its vessel. The younger sister's heart pounded. Her plan had not only failed, it had awakened something she could not control. And in that silence, the feast of betrayal became the beginning of a legend. Before the night of the feast and the miracle that silenced a kingdom, the elder daughter had already been a figure of quiet wonder. Her name was whispered with affection not just in the marble corridors of the palace but in the clay courtyards of villagers who had never set eyes on her. She had been born on a morning when the rains returned after a long drought. The farmers called her a child of blessing, and the midwives said the earth itself sighed with relief at her first cry. From infancy she carried a gentleness that drew both people and animals alike. Birds lingered near her window when she sang. The palace dogs rested at her feet, abandoning their usual guard to sit in peace beside her. Servants often found excuses to linger where she worked, for her words were never harsh, her gaze never cruel. But kindness, in a palace of ambitions, can be as dangerous as a blade. When her mother, the king's first wife, died in childbirth, the girl was still young, but her memory remained tied to the queen's legacy. Courtiers would look upon the daughter and murmur, "She is her mother reborn. Look at her grace, her patience. Truly she carries the first queen's spirit." Such whispers, though meant as praise, became poison in the ears of the second queen and her daughter, who were determined to build their own place in the kingdom's story. The elder daughter did not hunger for power. She did not demand attention. She found solace in quiet corners of the palace, helping seamstresses stitch gowns, listening to the old guards recount battles, or teaching children of the servants to read the old stories carved into wood and parchment. But it was precisely this humility that made people love her more fiercely. They compared her to the gentle light of dawn, never demanding, yet always lifting the darkness. Her stepmother, the new queen, watched with growing unease. At court gatherings, when visitors bowed before the king, many would turn their eyes to the elder daughter after offering their respects. "How radiant she is," they whispered. "How like her mother before her." Gifts meant for the queen were sometimes subtly shifted toward the daughter. Even suitors from distant lands invited to consider alliances, often left speaking more of the young woman than of the throne itself. And the younger daughter, her stepsister, simmered under this shadow. Though she wore heavier jewels, brighter fabrics, and spoke with practiced elegance, she could never command the same warmth of spirit. Her laughter always sounded rehearsed beside her sister's natural joy. Her presence, though outwardly commanding, seemed brittle compared to the elder's effortless grace. The elder daughter never flaunted this affection, but neither could she conceal it. Once, when a famine struck a distant province, she offered her own ornaments to be melted down for grain. The gesture was simple, born of instinct, yet the bards carried the tale far and wide. Songs of her generosity reached even the poorest huts. The stepmother was furious. "She seeks to shame us," she muttered in her chambers. "Does she mean to show that I am less generous than she? That my daughter's jewels are too precious to part with?" But the truth was simpler. The elder daughter gave because she could not bear to withhold. Among the villagers she became something of a legend even while alive. They called her the heart of the kingdom, and children playing in the dust pretended to be the kind princess who gave without asking. In taverns, men spoke of her as the hope of the throne, though she had never spoken of rule herself. To the stepmother and her daughter, however, this growing reverence was intolerable. The palace was not meant to be her stage. She was not the child of the reigning queen. Yet the people seemed blind to such lines of blood. One evening, as the elder daughter walked through the courtyard, carrying a basket of herbs she had gathered herself, she paused at the sound of voices. Her stepmother and stepsister spoke behind a column, their tones sharp as knives. "She steals what should be ours," the stepmother hissed. "She does not steal," the younger whispered back, though her words were laced with bitterness. "They give it to her. They worship her." "Then take it back," the mother urged. "Do not sit idle while the kingdom forgets who you are. Find a way to remind them she is not a saint, but flesh like the rest of us, flesh that can bleed." The elder daughter stood frozen, her heart heavy but her face calm. She turned away without letting them know she had heard. It was not in her nature to accuse or to hate. Yet that night, as she sat in her chamber staring at the flickering lamp, she felt for the first time the weight of being loved too much. For love, she realized, can make enemies sharper than any crown. And so the seeds of envy continued to grow, even as she prayed for peace. Envy begins as a whisper, a fleeting thought that could be silenced if only the heart chose to turn away. But in the stepmother's palace, envy was watered daily until it grew into a vine that coiled itself around every corner of their thoughts, choking reason and filling their breaths with bitterness. The younger daughter, though robed in silk and crowned with jewels, felt herself invisible whenever her sister entered a room. Servants who should have obeyed her without hesitation hesitated instead, waiting for the elder's soft-spoken word. Courtiers compared her sharp laughter with her sister's melodic voice, and though they never spoke their preference aloud, their eyes betrayed them. At first, the younger tried to compete. She practiced songs in secret chambers, forcing her voice higher, smoother, hoping it might match her sister's natural tone. She ordered gowns of rare dye, brighter and heavier with embroidery than any her sister wore. She memorized proverbs to seem wise in the presence of elders. But no matter how hard she strained, her efforts were like shadows chasing the sun, always there, always stretched behind but never able to overtake. It was her mother who fed the fire. "Why do you let her outshine you?" the queen muttered as she watched her stepdaughter distribute bread to servants. "Do you not see how they adore her? That adoration should be yours. You are my child, the rightful jewel of this court. Yet you sit idle while her name is sung beyond the walls." "I try, mother," the younger hissed. "I sing, I dance, I wear the finest clothes, yet still they choose her." "Then you must stop trying to compete," her mother whispered with cold finality. "You must make her fall. Only when her light is extinguished will they see yours." The words burrowed deep into the younger's heart. What began as frustration became obsession. She started watching her sister more closely, memorizing her daily routines, the dishes she favored, the paths she took through the palace. Every smile her sister received felt like a slap. Every blessing she was given tasted like ashes in her mouth. Soon rumors began to stir. Courtiers with sharp tongues and idle hours whispered stories of the elder daughter's strange gifts. Too perfect, some muttered. She must be hiding something. Others, envious of her influence, fanned the flames. They suggested that no woman could be so universally adored without cunning. Perhaps she sought to manipulate the people. Perhaps her kindness was a mask for ambition. The stepmother encouraged these murmurs. At feasts she would lean toward a trusted noble and sigh, "Do you not think it strange? She was born on the day the drought ended, almost unnatural, is it not? Or, have you noticed how even animals flock to her? Such things are not always signs of blessing. Sometimes they are omens." Like seeds carried on the wind, the whispers spread beyond the palace walls. Some villagers dismissed the gossip, clinging to the girl's goodness as they had always known it. But others, warned by their own jealousy or hardship, found it easier to believe that someone so blessed must carry a hidden curse. Fear began to weave itself into the edges of her legend. The younger sister watched this with satisfaction. At last, she thought, the perfect image begins to crack. Yet even as doubts were sown, her sister walked through the palace with the same grace, as if untouched by the venom around her. She still gave to the poor, still laughed with children, still knelt to listen when an elder spoke. Her light, though attacked, did not dim. And that, more than anything, drove the younger to despair. One night, alone in her chamber, the younger stared at a broken goblet glinting in the torchlight. A thought rose within her, sharp and dangerous. If words could not destroy her sister, perhaps something else could. Her hand traced the jagged edge and she imagined it in her sister's throat, her sister's veins. She imagined silence falling over the hall as her rival's light was extinguished forever. The idea rooted itself like a dark seed. She began grinding the shards, whispering to herself that it was justice, not cruelty. That her sister had stolen enough admiration, enough love, enough life that did not belong to her. She smiled faintly as the dust glittered in her palm. Soon, she promised herself. Soon they will see who truly deserves the crown. The night of the great feast came with drums that echoed across the stone courtyards, a rhythm that summoned nobles, courtiers, and guests from distant lands. Torches blazed along the palace gates, their flames licking upward as if to challenge the stars. Inside the royal hall, tables of carved ebony gleamed with plates of roasted lamb, baskets of millet bread, and golden bowls of honeyed fruit. It was a night meant to display unity, a celebration of the kingdom's prosperity. But beneath the glitter of gold and the perfume of roses, poison stirred. The elder daughter prepared for the feast in her chamber, her gown of white silk embroidered with threads of silver. A servant combed her long hair until it shone like dark water, then placed a simple circlet upon her brow. Though she was the king's daughter, she never adorned herself with heavy jewels. Her beauty lay in her simplicity, and that, more than all her stepmother's wealth, drew admiration from those around her. In another chamber, the younger daughter dressed in crimson silk and emerald stones that dripped from her neck and ears like drops of envy hardened into gems. She stared into her mirror, her eyes shadowed by sleepless nights of scheming. In the hidden folds of her sash was the packet of glass dust, ground so fine it sparkled like sugar. Tonight she would end the shadow that had consumed her life. Tonight she would silence the endless comparisons. The feast began with music. Flutes trilled, drums thundered, and dancers in flowing garments spun across the floor. The king sat at the head of the long table, the queen mother beside him, her gaze flicking often toward the elder daughter. Guests raised cups of palm wine, voices rising in laughter and song. The elder daughter ate little at first, preferring to talk with the servants who poured the drinks, asking them of their families, their health. Her kindness was as constant as breathing. It was during one of these distracted moments that the younger daughter's hand moved. Swift as a serpent, she let the glittering dust fall into her sister's bowl of stew. The shards vanished into the broth, unseen by all but her. Her heart raced, a drum louder than the music, but she forced her face to remain serene. When the elder lifted her spoon, the hall seemed to hold its breath. The broth shimmered strangely in the torchlight, yet she did not notice. She whispered her usual prayer of thanks and raised the food to her lips. The younger daughter's hand tightened around her goblet. She imagined her sister choking, blood bright against her white gown, the hall erupting in horror. She imagined herself rushing to comfort the king, the nobles turning to her in pity and awe. Finally she thought, the sun will set on her and rise on me. But when the elder swallowed, she did not cry out. She did not bleed. Instead, the hall fell silent as the broth in her bowl began to glow. The glass shards melted into liquid light, spreading across the stew like molten gold. Then, slowly, letters formed, curved, shifting symbols that no one recognized. They pulsed with life, rising and sinking as if alive, a language of fire and water. Gasps filled the hall. Nobles leaned forward, their cups forgotten. Servants dropped to their knees, whispering prayers. "What is this?" someone breathed. The king stood, his face pale, his crown gleaming beneath the torchlight. "This is no trick of man," he declared. "These are words older than our kingdom." The younger daughter froze. Her mouth was dry, her heart pounding with terror. This was not the victory she had dreamed of. This was something else, something she had unleashed without understanding. The elder looked down at the glowing bowl, her face serene though her hands trembled. She had not asked for this, yet it had been given. She felt the weight of it pressing upon her chest, a message she could not read but somehow understood. She was chosen. Protected. The Queen Mother's smile cracked, her mask slipping for the first time in years. Around her, the courtiers murmured, torn between awe and fear. Some whispered that the gods had spoken. Others feared it was sorcery. But all eyes turned to the elder daughter, radiant in the shifting glow, her figure haloed by the light of symbols no one could comprehend. The younger daughter tried to rise, to speak, to laugh it off as coincidence, but her voice caught in her throat. She had planned her sister's ruin. Instead, she had elevated her to legend. The feast continued in uneasy silence. No one touched the elder's bowl again. The symbols shimmered until the last flame in the hall flickered low, and then they faded, leaving only the untouched stew behind. But the memory of what they had seen did not fade. Whispers began immediately, faster than wildfire. "She is chosen. She carries words of the ancestors. She cannot be harmed." The younger daughter lay awake that night, staring at the darkness. Her plan had failed, but her envy had only deepened. What had begun as rivalry was now war. If glass could not kill her, she thought, then something else must. The seeds of betrayal had sprouted, and their roots were curling deeper into the soil of the palace. The morning after the feast, the palace was not the same. Though the torches had burned out and the tables had been cleared, the memory of the glowing words lingered like smoke in the rafters. No servant passed the corridor without whispering about what they had seen. No guard stood at his post without darting nervous glances toward the elder daughter's chambers. The miracle had spread beyond the walls before dawn. By the time the sun broke over the horizon, villagers were already gathering outside the palace gates, murmuring questions, seeking glimpses. Some knelt in prayer, convinced the princess was blessed by the ancestors. Others crossed themselves and muttered darkly that no mortal should hold such power. Inside, the elder daughter herself sat quietly in her chamber, staring at the empty bowl that had been returned to her. The symbols were gone, yet she still felt their weight pressing upon her heart. She had not imagined it, she knew that much. The words had been real, and though she could not read them, she sensed they were not meant to harm her but to reveal her. Reveal her as what, though she could not say. Her maid, trembling as she laid out fresh garments, finally spoke. "My lady, the servants say you have been chosen by spirits. They say the gods themselves wrote for you." The elder lifted her gaze, calm but distant. "Do you believe that?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "I saw it with my own eyes." "We all did." That answer brought no comfort. For the elder daughter, being seen as chosen meant being lifted above ordinary humanity, and being lifted was often the same as being isolated. Elsewhere in the palace, the younger daughter seethed. She had meant to humble her sister before all, but instead she had created a legend. Her mother paced their chamber like a caged lioness, her nails scratching the arm of her chair. "They will worship her now," the queen spat. "Do you not see? The people are weak. They love signs and wonders. They will not ask whose hands mixed the glass. They will only say she is untouchable, sacred." The younger clenched her fists. "Then we must find another way." The glass was only the beginning. Yet beneath her anger, a chill gnawed at her. When she had poured the shards into the food, she had wanted only to wound. But the way they had dissolved, the way those words had risen, she could not shake the feeling that forces older and greater than her ambition had answered. And they had not answered in her favor. At council that afternoon, the king convened his advisors. Nobles filled the hall, voices buzzing with debate. "It is a sign of blessing," argued one elder. "The ancestors protect her. This must be celebrated." "A sign of danger," countered another. "Unnatural. The people will fear her, and fear breeds rebellion." "Better to call it holy than cursed," said a third. "Do not risk turning the people's awe into panic." The king listened, his fingers stroking his beard, his eyes on his eldest daughter who sat quietly at his side. She said nothing, for what could she say? She had not asked for the words to appear. She had no explanation, no defense. The Queen Mother, however, was quick to speak. "We cannot ignore this, my lord. A sign such as this must be interpreted. If the ancestors wrote through her, then it must mean something for the throne. Do you not see? Perhaps she is meant for more than being your daughter. Perhaps she is meant to rule. Her words cut the air like a blade. Murmurs rose, some nodding, others frowning. The younger daughter's face drained of color, rage and fear mingling in her chest. The elder daughter bowed her head. I seek no throne, father, she said softly. I ask only to serve as I always have. Let not this mystery divide us. But her humility did not silence the whispers. If anything, it made her seem even more untouchable. For in the eyes of many, only one truly destined for greatness could so easily refuse it. That night the palace grew uneasy. Strange dreams came to those who had witnessed the feast. Servants dreamed of letters burning across the walls. Guards woke trembling, hearing whispers in languages they did not understand. Even the king stirred in his sleep, muttering names long forgotten. The elder daughter too dreamed. She stood in a vast field of millet, the stalks burning yet sprouting green as fast as they were consumed. Above her, symbols shimmered in the smoke, shifting into shapes, wings, rivers, roots, before dissolving again. She woke with tears on her cheeks, her heart heavy but strong. Meanwhile, the younger daughter lay awake, her mind racing. If miracles had chosen her sister, then she would need darker forces still. She could not allow the kingdom to forget her. She could not allow herself to be erased. Between wonder and fear, the kingdom held its breath. For when miracles descend, they do not bless without also demanding. And the price of this blessing was yet to be known. The palace could not hold its silence for long. By the second dawn after the feast, whispers had already hardened into stories, and stories had grown into belief. Everywhere she went, the elder daughter felt eyes upon her. Servants bowing too deeply, guards holding their breath in her presence, children peeking from behind columns before scampering away in awe. She, who had been gentle and unnoticed, now walked like a figure from legend. And though she sought no such glory, it clung to her all the same. For the queen mother and her younger daughter, this was unbearable. Look at them, the queen hissed, standing at her window watching as villagers knelt outside the gates. They come to bless her, to beg her, to see her face. And you, my child, you stand in her shadow like a servant. The younger's lips tightened. I will not live in her shadow, mother. Tell me what to do. The queen turned, her eyes sharp as blades. We will not fight her with open hands. The people love their miracles too dearly. We must fight her with shadows. If the spirits protect her, then we shall call upon spirits who oppose. The younger paled. Dark spirits. Do you fear them? The queen asked coolly. The younger hesitated, then swallowed hard. No. Good. Because fear is what we need. If the people love her light, then we must give them reason to fear the darkness she carries. We will make them believe her miracle was not blessing but curse. That very night, the queen summoned a woman who had not been seen within the palace walls for years. A bent figure, cloaked in tattered black, who walked with a staff made of bone. Her eyes, clouded yet piercing, carried the weight of secrets no ordinary mortal dared keep. She was called the Whisperer, a woman known for trafficking with spirits. The guards refused to look at her as she entered, but the queen welcomed her with a smile. You are needed, the queen said. A miracle has taken root in my household, and it must be plucked out before it grows into a tree that overshadows us all. The Whisperer tilted her head. I have heard of the glass that melted into words. I have heard of the people who bow to your elder child. Then you know why you are here, the queen pressed. The woman's voice creaked like a door in the wind. Be careful, queen. Those who fight against the spirits may find themselves consumed. I am not asking you to fight them, the queen said, her smile thin. Only to twist what they have done. To turn awe into suspicion, reverence into fear. The Whisperer's eyes gleamed. And what will you give in return? Anything, the queen whispered. The younger daughter flinched at the word. Anything. What price would the spirits demand? The Whisperer leaned close, her breath smelling of ashes. Bring me something that belongs to the elder girl, something she has touched, something she has worn, something that carries her warmth. With it I will weave a shadow. When the people look upon her, they will no longer see purity. They will see danger. The younger hurried away to fetch what was asked. She returned with a silken scarf the elder wore often, soft and faintly scented with lavender. The Whisperer took it with a hiss of satisfaction, then placed it into the fire of a small iron bowl she carried. As the cloth blackened, the air thickened. Symbols, different from those that had shone at the feast, rose from the smoke, jagged and sharp, like claws scratching the air. They writhed before vanishing into the dark. It is done, the Whisperer croaked. Where she walks, fear will follow. Even her own reflection will betray her. And indeed, the next morning strange things began to happen. When the elder daughter approached the gardens, the flowers that had always bloomed toward her seemed to shrink away. The servants who once smiled in reverence now crossed themselves nervously. Children no longer peeked at her with wide eyes of wonder but ran crying to their mothers. Even the palace dogs growled when she passed. The words that had once seemed divine now became the subject of darker whispers. What if they were a curse? People murmured. What if the spirits meant to warn us, not bless her? The younger daughter watched all this unfold with a mixture of relief and unease. She had wanted her sister shamed, but this shadow that now clung to the elder felt too strong, too unnatural. At night, she dreamed of those jagged symbols twisting in smoke, pressing against her chest, burning her skin. She would wake, gasping, unsure if the darkness was truly gone. But the queen rejoiced. "It is working," she whispered to her daughter. "Soon the people will beg us to rid them of her. Soon even your father will doubt her place." Yet in her chambers the elder daughter prayed. She prayed not for her own safety, but for the hearts of those who feared her. She had seen light in her visions and she believed that light could not be swallowed forever. And though shadows spread, somewhere beneath the palace floor, the melted words still lingered in the stones, waiting to speak again. The shadow fell heavily across the palace. The elder daughter felt it every time she left her chamber, the way whispers stopped when she passed, the way guards stiffened, the way her steps seemed to echo longer than they should. She was not blind. She knew something had shifted. The people who once bowed in awe now bowed in fear. Yet she did not let her shoulders bend. She had always borne cruelty in silence, she would bear this too. But inside her spirit ached. One evening, when the sky was painted deep with purples and streaks of red, the king himself summoned her. She entered the throne hall with a calm face, though her pulse trembled. At his side stood her stepmother and younger sister, faces hidden behind carefully arranged grief. "Daughter," the king said slowly, his voice heavy, "the people speak with uneasy tongues. Some say your miracle was holy. Others whisper it was a curse. They fear you." Her stepmother lowered her eyes in false sorrow. "We want only her safety, my king. If the people begin to think she brings misfortune, their fear could turn dangerous." The elder daughter turned her gaze to her father. "Father, I have done nothing but walk the path given to me. I did not summon those words. They came. And I will not renounce them, whether the world calls them blessing or curse." The king sighed, troubled. He loved his daughter, but doubt crept into his eyes, planted there by his wife's poison. Still, the whispers must be answered. That very night, a great storm rose from nowhere. Thunder cracked above the palace like a whip, and rain fell in sheets that rattled the roofs. The people huddled in fear, whispering that the gods themselves had come to test them. In the heart of the storm, as the elder daughter prayed by her window, something stirred. The words that had once melted into the stones beneath the banquet hall began to glow faintly again. At first she thought it was lightning, but then she saw. The glow came from within, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Drawn by something stronger than fear, she went to the hall. Servants and guards followed, murmuring. There, on the very stones where the glass had melted, new symbols were forming. They shimmered in the lightning's flash, fluid and golden, brighter than before. This time the words did not sink into silence. They rose into the air, hovering in delicate threads of light. The storm outside stilled as if listening. The younger sister gasped and clutched her mother's arm. The stepmother's face drained of color. "What sorcery is this?" she whispered. But the people fell to their knees. For the words did not twist like curses. They spiraled like vines in bloom, unfolding into shapes everyone could understand, not language but meaning. Peace, truth, justice. The symbols pulsed once, twice, and then drifted like golden seeds through the hall. Wherever they touched, fear melted away. The guards who had once flinched now bowed deeply, tears streaking their faces. Servants pressed their foreheads to the floor, whispering prayers. The younger daughter tried to speak, but no sound came. Her throat felt full of ash. The stepmother shook her head in denial, but the sight was undeniable. "It is the spirits," one elder cried from the back of the hall. "The ancestors themselves walk with her." Others echoed, their voices rising until the hall trembled with devotion. "Blessed. She is blessed." The king, who had risen to his feet, could no longer hide the awe in his eyes. His doubt, stoked so carefully by his wife, broke like glass. He stepped forward, his crown catching the glow. "My daughter," he whispered, his voice carrying through the silence that followed, "it seems the spirits have chosen you. And in that moment the second miracle was sealed. But not everyone bowed. In the shadows at the edge of the hall, the whisperer, the bent woman with her staff of bone, hissed softly. She had been summoned to see what the light would do, and now she saw the balance tipping against her mistress. Her crooked fingers tightened on the staff. The stepmother's nails dug into her palms. "No," she breathed. "No, this cannot be." She felt her schemes crumbling like sand in rain, but her heart only hardened. If miracles defended the elder daughter, then she would turn to deeper darkness still. Yet for the moment the palace was alight. The storm faded, leaving the night sky clear, stars burning like 1,000 watchful eyes. The people poured into the hall, kneeling at the feet of the elder daughter, chanting blessings, offering garlands, pressing their foreheads to the stones where the words still glowed faintly. And she, though humbled, did not falter. She raised her hands gently and said, "The spirits do not choose one for glory but for service. If they have chosen me, it is to guard this kingdom, not to rule it, not to rise above you but to walk beside you." The people wept. The younger sister trembled. The stepmother's envy burned hotter than ever before. For light had answered shadow, and once again, it had not been silenced. The palace no longer breathed the way it once had. Where once the younger princess had been the darling, the flutter of silks and smiles wherever she went, now shadows followed her. Servants who once bowed deeply now glanced past her, their eyes drawn instead to the elder sister, the one who walked with unearthly calm, her presence wrapped in whispers of miracles. The younger sister felt it every day, a thorn lodged in her chest. At the market, women laid fruits at her sister's feet, whispering prayers of blessing. Children ran after her, calling her name like a charm. Even the soldiers of the guard, men who had once secretly courted the younger sister's beauty, now kept their eyes lowered, as though afraid to look upon one who walked with spirits. She could not bear it. Each smile directed toward her sister was a wound, each whispered prayer a knife. By night she tossed in her bed, clawing at her own sheets, thinking only of the glow that had filled the banquet hall, the golden words that had bloomed like fireflies. Her mother was no calmer. The queen, though few now called her that without hesitation, spent her days pacing, her fingernails bitten to the quick, her eyes hollow from lack of sleep. Her schemes, once sharp as blades, now seemed brittle. "We cannot fight miracles," she muttered again and again. "Not with poison, not with whispers. The people would tear us apart if they knew." But the younger daughter was more reckless. "Then let us not fight the people," she spat one evening, her voice trembling with rage. "Let us fight her. If she is to be the chosen, then let her be chosen no more." It was the whisperer who answered, her shadow leaning from the dark corner of the chamber. The bent woman's voice slithered like smoke. "There are threads that bind even miracles. No spirit walks unguarded, no blessing without its price." She tapped her staff of bone on the floor. "If you wish her fall, you must weave the web yourselves." The queen's eyes flickered with fear, but her daughter leaned forward eagerly. "Tell us." So the whisperer wove words of darker arts. She spoke of mirrors that devoured the truth they reflected, of waters that could swallow voices whole, of blood that could be offered in secret and turned against kin. She told them that miracles were not invincible, they could be twisted, entangled, suffocated beneath enough shadows. "But such weaving," she crooned, her teeth flashing, "requires sacrifice. Flesh for flesh. Blood for blood." The queen recoiled. "Enough," she hissed. "We dare not call upon curses. The spirits already hover in this palace." But the younger daughter did not flinch. "Then let them hover," she said, her voice trembling but hard. "If the spirits love her, let them protect her from what we weave." The whisperer's smile was slow and terrible. "So it shall be." That very night, while the rest of the palace slept, the stepmother and her younger daughter crept into the deepest chamber of the east wing, where no servant went after sundown. The whisperer had marked the stones there with symbols of ash and bone. Candles burned without flame, their smoke curling upward in unnatural shapes. The queen's hand shook as she pricked her finger and let a drop of blood fall upon the stones. Her daughter followed, her jaw clenched, though her stomach twisted. The blood hissed when it touched the ash, spreading into threads that formed a web across the floor. In the center of that web the whisperer whispered names. The elder daughter's name among them. Each repetition made the candles flicker, their smoke twisting tighter, until the air itself seemed to hum. And above them, unseen in the rafters, the wind stirred. For the spirits who had chosen the elder daughter were not deaf nor blind. They felt the web being spun. They watched as shadows crept through the cracks of the palace walls. And though they did not strike yet, they gathered, waiting, their patience heavy as the air before a storm. The stepmother and her daughter rose from the ritual chamber pale and trembling, but triumphant. "The web is spun," the whisperer murmured. "Soon she will stumble. Soon her miracles will unravel." The younger sister smiled, though her heart still pounded in fear. At last, she thought. At last her rival would fall. But in her chamber, the elder sister woke from sleep with a start, her skin prickling, her ears filled with the faint sound of bells that had not rung in years. She looked toward the window and saw nothing, only starlight and silence. Yet deep within her she knew. Something had begun to stir against her. And she would need every ounce of strength the spirits had given her to endure what came next. The palace awoke restless, as if a sickness had seeped into its walls overnight. Servants dropped trays without reason, guards lost track of their posts, and horses in the royal stables stamped and snorted until their hooves bled. None could say why, but all felt the unease crawling beneath their skin. And at the heart of it, the elder princess bore the weight. She walked through the corridors as she always did, quietly, gracefully, but this time the whispers followed her. The storm, some muttered. Her presence. Others avoided her gaze altogether, their fear rekindled. It was as though the miracle that once silenced doubt now stirred it anew. At the council table, the elders shifted uneasily. One cleared his throat. "Majesty," he said to the king, "strange things trouble the kingdom. Crops wither at their roots. Wells taste of ash. Perhaps it is a sign we have angered the ancestors." His eyes flicked toward the elder daughter. He did not name her, but his meaning soured the air. The king frowned. "You would accuse my child?" "No, no," the elder said quickly, "but such wonders as we have seen, words and light, storms that heed her, perhaps they come with cost. Perhaps her blessing is too great for mortals to bear." The younger princess sat silently at her mother's side, but her lips curved in secret triumph. Already the web was tightening. Already fear began to bite. That night the palace trembled. Dreams thick as smoke invaded every chamber. Servants woke screaming, claiming they had seen words burning across their skin, words they could not read but felt like fire. Mothers woke to find their infants crying at nothing. Even the king, strong as stone, rose drenched in sweat, haunted by visions of mirrors cracking in the dark. Only the stepmother, her daughter, and the whisperer slept peacefully. By dawn the palace was divided. Some knelt before the elder princess, begging her to intercede with the spirits they believed she commanded. Others turned away from her, muttering curses, blaming her for the sleeplessness, the rotting food, the taste of ash. The elder daughter felt the shift like knives in her back. She had not asked for miracles, had not sought this strange burden. Yet the people, once warmed by the glow, now recoiled as though her very presence burned them. When she walked into the great hall, voices fell silent. A child, too young to know fear, toddled forward with a flower and pressed it into her hand. She smiled, but the child's mother yanked him back sharply, eyes filled with terror. The flower dropped to the floor, crushed beneath hurried feet. Her heart cracked. In the shadows, her sister watched, savoring the moment. At last the balance tilted. At last the light was dimming. But the spirits had not abandoned her. That night, as she sat alone in her chamber, despair tightening around her throat, the air shimmered faintly. The same words that had once risen in golden light flickered again, this time across her mirror. They did not glow brightly, they pulsed faint and uncertain as though straining through the veil. She reached out, fingers trembling, and the words dissolved like water. But their meaning filled her chest. "Stand. Do not yield. The web breaks when truth is spoken." Tears burned her eyes. She understood. Lies were wrapping around her like chains, but chains could be broken if she stood before the people and spoke with the voice of her spirit. Still, fear clung to her. Could she bear it? Could she face them all and risk that they would call her cursed, perhaps even demand her exile? The next morning brought no answer, only another crack in the kingdom's peace. A villager rushed into the palace crying that fields had turned to dust overnight. Fingers pointed once more. All eyes turned toward her. Her stepmother's voice rose sweet and poisonous. "Perhaps she carries too much power for this kingdom. Perhaps she must leave for our safety." The younger daughter's silence was a dagger of agreement. And the king, though his heart wavered, looked torn. He loved his daughter, but the weight of his people pressed hard upon him. It was the breaking point. The elder daughter stood, her voice ringing clear despite the fear that gnawed at her ribs. "If you would judge me," she said, "then let it be before all. Let the people gather, let the council listen. I will not hide nor flee. I will stand in the truth of what has been done to me." The hall fell silent. The stepmother's lips tightened. The younger sister's heart skipped in dread. The whisperer only smiled, for she knew webs were strongest when prey stepped into their center. But the spirits whispered otherwise. In the silence between heartbeats, the elder princess felt them, close as breath. Speak, and the web will burn. The summons went out across the kingdom. Messengers carried the king's decree to every corner. A gathering would be held in the palace courtyard, where all might witness the truth. By dawn, the air trembled with anticipation. Farmers left their fields, merchants closed their stalls, children clung to their mothers as the crowd swelled beyond the palace gates. The council assembled first, grim-faced and wary. The king sat heavy upon his throne, a man torn between love and doubt. At his side, the queen's smile curved like a blade, her younger daughter beside her with eyes bright and hungry. Behind them, the whisperer leaned upon her staff, her shadow stretching unnaturally long in the morning light. At last the elder princess entered. She came not in jewels or silks but in a simple robe of white, her hair loose, her face solemn. The crowd hushed as though the air itself waited on her steps. Each footfall seemed to echo with something more than sound, and the murmur of doubt faltered into silence. When she stood before them, she did not bow or plead. She lifted her gaze, meeting the eyes of her people, her family, her enemies. Her voice carried without strain, clear as water over stone. "You have called me blessed," she said softly. "You have called me cursed. You have feared me and you have knelt before me. Yet I have done nothing but live among you as daughter and sister. It is not I who summoned words of fire, it is the spirits of our ancestors who see more deeply than we." The crowd shifted uneasily. Some lowered their heads, others stared transfixed. She stepped forward, her hands trembling but steady. "You want the truth? Then I will tell it. I was poisoned, glass mixed into my food. Not by strangers, but by the hand of my own sister." Gasps broke the air. The younger daughter flinched, color draining from her cheeks. "And when the glass did not cut me, when it melted into words the spirits had written, the lies began," the elder princess continued. Her eyes turned, unblinking, to her stepmother. "Lies whispered to my father. Lies fed to the council. Lies meant to bury me in silence." The queen rose in fury. "You dare," she spat. "You dare slander your family with such madness?" But the princess's voice did not waver. "If I speak lies, then let the ancestors strike me down before you all. If I speak truth, let them show it." The courtyard held its breath. Then the wind stirred. It rose from nowhere, a hot, dry wind that sent dust spiraling into the air. The whisperer gripped her staff, but the staff shook in her hands. The queen stumbled back, her voice caught in her throat. And above the elder princess, words began to form once more, not on stone this time, nor in flame, but in the very air, woven from light. "Justice. Betrayal. Truth." The crowd cried out. Some wept openly, others dropped to their knees, their fear dissolving into awe. The golden words blazed brighter, and in their glow, shadows writhed around the queen and her daughter like chains. The whisperer hissed, shrinking from the light, her form flickering as though it were no longer wholly human. The king rose to his feet, his crown gleaming. His voice broke with grief and fury. "Is it true?" he demanded, his gaze searing his wife and younger child. "Speak. Did you do this?" The younger daughter collapsed, tears streaming. Her voice cracked. I wanted her gone. She had everything. She stole everything." The queen slapped her, but too late. The words were spilled, the guilt laid bare. The crowd roared with outrage, some calling for exile, others for blood. The elder princess raised her hand and silence fell once more. Her eyes glistened, but her voice was firm. "The spirits have judged. I need not. Their words are enough." And with that, the golden letters dissolved into a shower of sparks, raining softly upon the courtyard like blessings. Where they touched, grass pushed up between the stones, tiny blossoms unfolding in defiance of the season. The miracle was complete. The king turned to his wife and younger child, his face like stone. "You will be judged," he said, his voice breaking. "By the council, by the people, by the spirits you defied." As guards moved to seize them, the whisperer let out a shriek and dissolved into smoke, vanishing into the wind. The queen cried out, struggling, but her power was broken. The younger daughter sobbed, no longer proud, no longer cruel, only broken by her own envy. But all eyes turned not to them but to the elder daughter. She stood radiant in the fading light of the miracle, her robe glowing faintly as though touched by dawn. For the first time she did not feel like prey or pawn. She felt her spirit rise, unshaken, untouchable. And when the people bowed before her, it was not out of fear but reverence.